Welcome to InterviewPro. In this video, we are going to learn two-way binding in Angular. I've already set up some code to save time. I've created a component called feedback, which contains a form to submit the feedback. This form will have two controls, name of the user and the feedback shared by the user. I've added this component to app component here and also to the app module. This is how the UI looks like. This is coming from our previous video and this is the feedback component that I have created for this video. I want to add some more functionality to this form. Like when we enter name here, I want to see the entered name just below this input, and also we are restricting this text area to contain only 1000 characters. Beyond that, user cannot enter any more characters. So I want to see how many characters user has entered so far. Let's see how we can achieve this. Let's go to feedback component.ts. I have already created two variables, one for username and the other for feedback. Initially, these values are assigned to empty string. Let's bind these variables to feature component HTML. Previously, when we want to bind variables to the elements or to display the values of those variables on the UI, we used interpolation and attribute binding, basically one-way binding. But now what we want is, as soon as I enter here, that name should reflect here. So I can make use of attribute binding, then create an event and then display the text back to the UI, but it's a long process. Let's see how we can do both, like how we can store this value in the variable and also bind that variable back to the UI. This can be done using ngModel. In order to use ngModel, first you have to import forms module. So let's import forms module in app module.js.ts and put this module in the imports. Forms module. So the first step is done. Now go back to the form and use ngModel keyword. This keyword has to be wrapped within square brackets. The square brackets indicate attribute binding. So when we use the square brackets, the variable that we assign to ngModel will take the data that we entered in this input. We want this data to be binded two-way, right? So we have to bind the event also here. As we have seen in our previous video, the open and closed parenthesis represent an event. So we have both attribute binding and also the event to this username. Similarly, let's add the same thing to text area also for the feedback. Here the variable is going to be feedback. Now I want to display this text just below the input. So I'll use interpolation again, username. I'll give some text here. Let's say name : username. Here I want to see the number of characters entered into this text area. So I'll take this feedback. We want the length, not the actual text. So feedback dot length, and I want to represent like this. Total characters entered. And the maximum length, I have given this as 1000, so I'll just put /1000. Okay, let's go back to the UI. Now if I enter, it has to display this entered value here, but let's see what's happening. Let's go to console. Okay, we have the error here. If ngModel is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set or the form control must be defined as standalone in ngModel options. First, let's try setting the name attribute here. So for this input, I'll give name as username. For the text area, let's use the second option. It is giving us two options, right? Either the name attribute or standalone in ngModel options. So for the second one, I'll say ngModel options. This has to be done using attribute binding. And inside this, we'll say standalone : true. Let's see if it works now. Okay, this has to be an object. Now the code is compiled successfully. Let's go back. We don't see any error in the console. So let me close this. Now I'll enter some text here. Let's say InterviewPro, or I'll say test user. We see the type, we see the name test user displayed here. Also, I'll enter some text like awesome content, good luck, like this. So we have entered 27 out of 1000 characters here. If we continue to enter more than 1000 characters, let's see what happens. Now let me just copy paste to save time. We have 954 characters and we have 1000 characters. If I try to enter, I'm pressing some button on the keyboard, but it's not allowing me because we have set the max length as 1000. So awesome content. This is of length 16 and we see 16 by 1000 here. So this way you can use two-way binding using ngModel. Usually this representation, the square bracket and the open parenthesis, closed parenthesis, this representation is called banana in the box. You can remove the event and just use attribute binding also, but what happens is only the value that you typed in the input will be assigned to this variable, but you won't see the value coming back to the UI. Now if I enter something, you don't see this value coming back. So if you want it, you have to bind the event as well. Okay, this is all about ngModel and two-way binding in Angular. I hope the content is helpful. If you like the content, please like, share and subscribe to InterviewPro. Thank you.